Okay, so previously we have seen different types of sampling methods like uh, stratified sampling, right? Like quota sampling. Then we had uh, systematic sampling. What else? Cluster sampling as well. We know the definitions, and uh, we have discussed how can you uh, go over the problem, or there will be a short story given. So how can you actually cross check which method you are actually looking for in that particular problem? You can always go back to the definition, um, try to match it with the given information, and it's a trial and error based type of situation, because more than one could be right. Okay, so we can um, cross check our concept with the known definitions, known concepts. Today we'll do slightly different thing. We want to know how to mess things up before you start. That means now we want to know how we can create problems, how we can create issues in our sampling methods or in our survey, the whatever survey we're conducting, or how could the survey be biased or problematic and all that. Okay, all right. So since we are um, trying to collect data or following different sampling methods, we could actually see, or we could actually encounter different ways which could actually ruin our entire survey or whatever we're doing with the data. Okay, so let's see a couple of ways which could uh, lead us to uh, to different things, or which could create or raise issues in our uh, sampling methods or in our survey. So the source of bias, or what could be the possible ways? Okay, so the first one could be um, when the sampling itself is biased. That means when the sample you have chosen for your survey actually doesn't represent the entire population. Okay, so what could be an example of it? I guess we have already discussed this particular problem. you know um, Obviously you need to choose a sample, because most cases you can't really collect data from each and every one of a population, especially when it's really really big. So you need to choose a sample which should be representative of the entire population. Can you imagine a sample which could be uh, doing otherwise, which might not be the representative of the population? Can you imagine uh, any example of it? Let me give you a hint. When you use that example of doing the survey on the Laramie residents for the next election, I actually said one, or rather, uh, showed one, not really showed, I guess we discussed one example like this. Can you remember? Anyone? No one at all? Or is anyone trying to say and I'm unable to hear? Is it the case? I hope not. Okay, so if you remember, uh, when the pole star uh, went to the Grand Avenue and then started walking uh, towards Walmart, okay, and collecting data from them. We said there could be a sampling biasness because of different things, because of the um, group of people he will encounter, um, uh, because in that or that avenue might not be enough for uh, representing the population, or even let's say a better option could be, I guess we said, when the pollster went to the UWO campus and started collecting data, that might not be representative of the entire population, because he is only collecting data who is somehow related to the UWO campus. That means either he is a student, or he or she is a student, or uh, he is affiliated uh, as an instructor or as a staff. So he needs to go to different places, right? He needs to go uh, to different places, different blocks, to collect data from perhaps uh, all the different groups of people, of different age groups, of different ethnicities, um, of different race and all that, right? Okay, what else? Next is voluntary response bias. Okay, so when you are conducting a survey where uh, people are not really obliged uh, to take part in that, they could actually take part in that voluntarily, then there could be a sampling biasness. Why is that? Excuse me. So maybe the number of people, not everyone, but the most number of people um, taking part in that survey voluntarily uh, will be going for the same responses. For example, if I now just um, do a survey on you, and if I say whoever takes part in my survey will get a +1. Okay, so you are just asked to take part in that voluntarily, and if you do that, if you just go to the survey, I'll give you a +1 for the quiz or for the next homework or whatever it is. So there could be sampling biasness because uh, you are doing it voluntarily. You are not really forced for it, and uh, most of you, I guess, will take part in that for that particular +1, right? So this could be one example. Not really, not quite the one we wanted, but this could be one example of it. The next one is actually related to this. That is bias that can occur uh, when the researchers have an interest in the outcome. Okay, so when I am conducting a survey which will actually benefit me, so there could be biasness. And why? Again, since I'm really interested in that, or since this particular survey or this collection of data will benefit me, that means I'm kind of uh, putting some emphasis on some data. So I'm creating biasness myself. We'll see one example of it. Example 14. Okay, so it says consider a recent study which found that chewing gum may raise math grades in teenagers. Okay, this study was conducted by the Wrigley Science Institute, a branch of the Wrigley Chewing Gum Company. This is an example of a self-interest study, one in which the researchers have a vested interest in the outcome of the study. While this does not necessarily ensure that the study was biased, it certainly suggests that we should subject the study to extra scrutiny. Now, does it make sense? Well, let's see and try to rephrase the problem again. So, first of all, this study was conducted by Wrigley Science Institute. Okay, no problems with that. But they're doing this on the impact of chewing gum in teenagers. Okay, now where is the biasness? Where could be the biasness? It doesn't really mean that it has to be biased, but again, we could see, or rather, we see that there could be biasness since they themselves have a chewing gum company, the Wrigley Chewing Gum Company. Since they have their own chewing gum company and they're doing it on chewing gums, so this suggests that they have interest in that study uh, because of their own company. So it suggests that it's a self-interest study. They are actually, they might have, we're not sure, but they are doing it maybe because it will benefit them on how to uh, rather maybe add flavors to the chewing gums, or they can advertise it better, and doing different things, right? So this could be an example of a self-interest study. Now let's take a pause and see if you have any question. Anyone? Is there anything you want me to discuss? All good? Well, a good thing is when you observe these definitions and examples for the first time, there's a possibility that things might not look good to you, things might not look convincing to you, but obviously it becomes more and more, it actually makes more and more sense when you see the definitions or the example over and over again. So that's a good thing. Uh, when I'm saying this, maybe it's not completely convincing, but if you go over the definitions again, if you uh, see these examples, or do a couple of other examples, you will see that slowly but surely it will make more sense. Okay. All right. Next we have response bias. Okay, what's that? Well, that's a funny thing, actually. Uh, it says when the responder gives inaccurate responses for any reason. Well, well, the why I said this is funny. The funny thing is you can't really control that. When there is an opportunity for the responder to actually give an inaccurate response, you definitely can't really control that. But if he's doing it on purpose for we don't know, for any reason, or for just for fun, because he doesn't care, then actually this survey will not give you a very good result. I mean, if it's done on a large scale, if you conduct a survey on 100 people and somehow for doing fun or something, a group of people, let's say 5 or 10 people, actually gave inaccurate responses, then your survey will actually be will not be as good as you wanted it to be, right? Let's see if we have an example or not. Yeah, we have one example of it. Example 15. It says a survey asks people, when was the last time you visited your doctor? Okay. And you can clearly imagine um, different things on this. First of all, it shouldn't be the case, but it's kind of obvious that you actually don't remember when the last time you visited the doctor, right? It could be a case. So if it's actually for uh, the health purpose, or rather monitoring your health conditions, then giving wrong information by any chance could be fatal, could be dangerous, right? For example, when I went for the vaccine, uh, I guess most of you have already experienced it. You need to give information whether or not you had any vaccine within the last 15 days or so, whether or not you have allergies on something, right? How many of you have already gone for the first dose? Let me see. That's a good collection of data as well. We can play with these examples later on. You can give me a thumbs up, or you can write it in the chat. How many of you? Um, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 of you? Why? 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now it's good. 9 uh, out of 15, I believe. Okay, very good. Fully vaccinated. Okay, perfect. So can't have it. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So out of 15, 9 of you have already gone for either the first one or the complete vaccination, right? Okay, so I guess you have already seen you need to fill up a form where you need to provide information on the allergies and different uh, chronic diseases, uh, and different things. I guess you have already seen it. So if somehow you give wrong information, maybe because you don't remember, this could be actually dangerous. For example, you actually have allergies and you can't remember it, or maybe you have missed it. You wanted to give uh, yes on that form, but somehow you given it a no, and then after the vaccination you might have reactions, uh, because you, as I said, because it could have been prevented if you had given the right information. Maybe it was not intentional. You may have forgotten it, or you have just, it could be a typo or something like that. but it could be a response bias. Can you see that? Or in some cases, I've seen people, they don't really want to provide uh, their health history. They don't really want to do it for some reasons. Obviously, they might have their own reasons. I've seen that myself. In the hospital, I've seen that, the clinic, people doing that. And in some cases, there are options like that, whether or not you want to disclose your medical history or not. Okay. So this could be a response bias, a very good example of it. Does it make sense? Is there anyone who is kind of struggling to understand what's going on? This could be a case. Don't hesitate at all. All good? I hope so. I can't see any questions. Okay, all right. Next, we have perceived lack of anonymity. Okay, what's that? Okay, so when the responder fears giving an honest answer might negatively affect them. Okay, who can give me an example of it? I think we have dealt with this type of problems in our course already. Can you imagine one example? Anyone? There is a very good example in our course already. We have encountered it. I have already mentioned it, to be honest. Maybe you didn't think it this way, but we have already experienced it. Anyone? Okay, let me uh, disclose it without wasting any more time. So, if you remember the survey we conducted, I said it's anonymous, okay? Because your record, your email address, or your name will not be collected when you take part in that survey. That means you can have your say without the fear of getting uh, bad grades from me. For example, as I said, I got one student who said my teaching quality is really poor. So if it was not anonymous, that means if the survey required name or the email address, I'm pretty sure no one would have given whoever that student. I really appreciate it. No worries with that. But if it required you, it asked you to add your name or email address or your personal information, I'm pretty sure there would have been no poor uh, responses. I mean, what I mean by poor responses is the option poor, which would have been chosen, right? Does it make sense? And that's why I actually kept it anonymous, so that you can respond it without any fear and give your honest response, give your honest feedback, right? Okay. Next, okay, let's see if we have any example of that as well. Yeah, example 16. Okay, so it says a survey asks participants a question about their interactions with members of other races. Here, a perceived lack of anonymity could influence the outcome. The respondent might not want to be perceived as racist, even if they are, and give an untruthful answer. Okay, that's an interesting one, right? So even if I'm a racist, uh, definitely I would avoid provide informations like this where I could be tagged as racist, because nowadays there are several issues, with this racism and all that. So maybe uh, maybe I'm actually one of those racist. Okay, maybe, but definitely I would like to avoid any problems, right? So when I encounter this type of surveys, maybe I'll not give an honest response to that. That could be a perceived lack of anonymity, right? Even if even even though it doesn't really, maybe it doesn't really ask you to add your name or personal information, still in that survey you don't want to be adding any kind of racism and all that, right? So yeah, that's a very good example of a perceived lack of anonymity. All right, what's next? We have loaded questions. Okay, so there could be a biasness when the questions are uh, influencing the responses. Now what does it mean? Let's see the example first, and then we'll try to uh, rediscuss it. Okay, so example 18. Okay, so it says the survey asks, do you support funding research of alternative energy sources to reduce our reliance on high polluting fossil fuels? Okay, this is an example of a loaded or leading questions whose wording leads the respondent towards an answer. Okay, loaded questions can occur intentionally by pollsters with an agenda or accidentally through poor question wording. Also, a concern is question order, where the order of questions changes the results. A psychology researcher provides an example. Let's see that. My favorite finding is this. We did a study where we asked students, how satisfied are you with your life? How often do you have a date? Two answers were not statistically related. You would conclude that there is no relationship between dating frequency and life satisfaction. But when you reverse the order and asked, how often do you have a date and how satisfied are you with your life, the statistical relationship was a strong one. You would now conclude that there is nothing as important um, in a student's life as dating frequency. Well, that's an interesting one. Okay, so now what does it mean to have a loaded question? So first one is the type of words you use. Maybe the wording itself is a problem. Maybe you don't really want any of those responses to be your feedback. Maybe you want to rephrase it, but again, there is no other options. You have to choose from the given informations. So the wording itself, the loaded responses could be a problem. Okay. For example, one uh, example could be this way, like uh, you actually encounter a question where it asks you whether you're satisfied or not. You are actually neutral about it, but the responses are yes or no. But you are neither satisfied nor you are unsatisfied or dissatisfied. Rather, you'd say, I'm just neutral. I'm just about okay with this. But you don't really have that option. It's not a good example, but it's kind of uh, uh, matches uh, the issue. Or the one we had with the psychology researcher, the order of the question. So they found, well, it's a psychological problem anyway, but uh, often it could be the order of the order of the question, which could lead you to different results. Like the example we have already seen, it says when it asks you about the frequency of dating, and then it asks you about how you're doing with your life, or how satisfied are you with your life, then they actually have a very good result. Students find a relationship between these two things. Maybe uh, the higher uh, or the more they date, the more satisfied they are with their life. But if we reverse the order of question, they have seen students actually were uh, uh, kind of negligent about it, because they really thought it doesn't really make any sense. Um, first asks you how satisfied with your life. You have already said you are not satisfied, and then it asks you how often do you have a date. So they don't really find any relationship. There is no harmony, synchronization in the questions. Okay, so it could be it could, as I said, it could lead you to mess things up. Okay, and the last one is when rather non-response bias. That means when people are refusing to participate in the study, um, and their ignorance can actually influence the validity of the outcome. Okay, so that's some unavoidable issue, I guess, because uh, in most cases you can't really force people to take part in the survey, right? So often there could be people who will say, hey, I'm not interested, uh, I'm not going to participate in that, in the study you're doing, in the survey you're conducting. Okay, people might refuse. That's kind of obvious, and it's kind of unavoidable. So what it means, when people refuse to take part in the survey, in the study, so this actually uh, could could be uh, working again in favor of, or rather, it could work against the validity of the outcome. How is that? So first of all, it uh, takes out a number of people out of the survey, although you didn't want it to be in this way, to be like this. But some people refusing it, that means their responses are not really recorded, although you thought they are actually, or rather you have defined your sample, and they actually consist a good portion of your sample. Okay, so the validity of the outcome um, might be questioned, that why people are refusing, whether it's the way you approached, whether it's about the questions, whether you approach them in the wrong time or something like that. It could be different things. Okay, so if you cross-check your work, then you might see, hold on, um, I don't think it's completely valid. It should have been this way, or it should have been that way, etc. Okay, let's see if we have an example of it or not. Um, we hope so. Yeah, example 19. It says a telephone poll asks the question, do you often have time to relax and read a book? And 50% of the people called um, refuse to answer the survey. Okay, now where is the problem? Where does the problem lie? So, for example, I guess when you call to different airlines or call to different service providers, often they say, please hold on to the line to do a short survey on how did you do with us, or rather, how did we do it to you? Did we solve your problem? How was the agent doing with you? Different things. They will say, just hold on to the line uh, for a brief 2-minute survey, right? How many of you have encountered this? I guess most of you. It should be everybody, I guess. How many of you have, uh, when you have made a phone call, let's say to Spectrum to or to Frontier Airlines, how many of you have experienced this? To uh, they might have said before, even before the phone was picked up or rather answered by an agent, they might have said your phone call will be recorded and etc., and then said after the call, please stay on the line to do this and this, right? How many of you have experienced it? Okay, I have something in the chat. Let's see. Okay, only two of you. That's interesting. Uh, anyway, yeah. So, okay, three of you. Okay, I have encountered it, I guess, thousands of times. My not really. No, you don't really need to be on a plane. When you make a phone call to different service providers, as I said, just for an example, I said Frontier Airlines. It doesn't need to be to any airlines. Even if you call the internet service provider, um, or even if you are on rent for real estate one, for example, in Laramie, often after the phone call or before the phone call, they might say that hold on, uh, or rather stay on the line uh, to give or provide feedback on the agent you have just talked with. It could be any service providers, or even in Walmart. Um, often if you make a phone call or if you chat with them, if you uh, if you ever have any live chat, you'll definitely see they will ask you to um, do a short survey. And I have never done this. I shouldn't say this, but I may have encountered it about thousand of times within this uh, 2.5, I guess more than 2.5 years stay at the United States. I'm here since 2018, so uh, I probably have encountered it about 100 times, but I've never done this. So I guess most of the people are not really interested in taking part of this type of service. So it is a very good example of a non-response bias, because it can't be a representative of the entire population. I mean, here the population is the number of people making that phone call, for example, or uh, doing that live chat in Walmart. It could be different things, but if most people, if a good number of people are actually refusing to answer the survey, then I don't think it's the representative of the entire population, right? It doesn't really make any sense. So that is an example of a non-response bias. Does it make sense, everyone? Okay. Okay, what's next? Next up, uh, we have, Okay, experiments. Okay, we'll definitely start this one next week. This will probably be the last topic for us. I guess we have 5 more discussions before we wrap this semester. And the last one will be the exam review session. So literally we have 4 more discussion class, and in these 4 discussions we'll cover this, I guess, yeah, this will be the last topic here. Okay, so we are actually almost to the end of this topic. That's good. But yeah, it will take time because we'll have several more definitions and examples to solve or to discuss. Okay. All right. So let's do it this way. We have 5 more minutes. Let's try the try it now 5. Okay. And one by one, I'll tell you the story, and you will say what type of biasness rather, what type of biasness do you see? Okay, let's see how many of this we can solve, and the rest will be a part of your pre-class assignment. Okay, so the first one, a survey asks how many sexual partners a person has had in the last year. Okay, so what type of biasness there could be? Just try to imagine. Sorry.
Response bias or
No response.
non-response bias.
No response bias. Okay, yeah, that uh, definitely makes sense. Anyone else has a different uh, opinion? Loaded question bias. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting choice. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? What if I say perceived lack of anonymity? Or what if I say non-response bias? I can see one response bias. What if I say non-response bias? People might refuse to take part in that survey, right? Okay. Okay, so as you can see, you may have different opinions, and it could have actually more than one answers. That's the funny thing, right? Okay, so before disclosing the answer, let's do one more, and then we'll disclose the answer together. So the next one is, a radio station asks readers to phone in their choice in a daily poll. What type of uh, biasness there could be? A radio station asks readers to phone in their choice in a daily poll. Anyone?
Maybe voluntary. I don't
And
know.
why?
Because like they have to volunteer, or they are making the call themselves, so they're volunteering for it.
Okay, so definitely it's a voluntary survey, because it says to phone in the choice in a daily poll, right? So definitely, if you are taking part in that survey, you are doing this voluntarily, right? Yeah, I agree with you. So I can't see any other uh, biasness there. Okay, I guess for the first one, yeah, I guess it should be the response bias. And why? Because if you remember, if you go back to the definition, response biases gives inaccurate responses for any reason. And one reason could be, I'm not sure how does it work here in United States. If you go back to Asia, most people will give inaccurate responses intentionally because they don't want to disclose it. They're not really comfortable with this type of questions. Okay, so yeah, I guess it's response bias. Okay, and I think perceived lack of anonymity could be another choice as well, but that's not obvious in most countries. It's, I guess, in mostly in Asia and all that. Okay, so yeah, so these two we have already discussed. We'll start with the third one, but it will be a pre-class assignment for you the next time we meet on Monday. Okay. All right. So have a great weekend and keep an eye on the announcement. If I successfully post the next homework assignment, I'll definitely make an announcement of it. Okay. All right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.